Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, on the planet. I'm so privileged to have the opportunity to share um, this talk with you that I was unable to share at the conference. Well, I shared some elements of it, but I'm privileged to be able to do this online. Thank God for social media in this regard. Amen. um, so yes, now I'm going to be going through um, the talk that I was supposed to do that I didn't do, or I did half of. And the first one was finding your place on the wall, community impacts. When we were at the conference, I kind of felt like God was leading me to kind of really speak into the people that were in that space. They are usually leaders of communities, and all of them have vision, or a lot of them had vision. And I just felt like instead of me trying to like push forward with what we'd planned, just go with what God had planned so that we can, work through this on another day. Um, but yes, I do want to welcome you all. Um, for those of you who don't know, Friends of TWIRL is people who are not necessarily members of the TWIRL community, but they have great initiatives. So their initiatives mean that they go out and they do great things. And maybe for one reason or another, they can't be a part of the TWIRL community. But they are our allies, they are our comrades, they are the people we go to war for the kingdom of God with. And so, as I always say, there's no competition. We are all investing in the same cause, in the same, God, in the same plan that He has, and we're aware that His plan is bigger than ours. So we can work together, and they are my family and they are my friends. So yes, we did have an opportunity to invest in them on at the conference, but we can also invest on here in the people that are out here consistently and continuously doing God's work and doing the things God has called them to do, with grace and with passion. So yes, we're talking about our friendships today, finding our place on the wall. And one of the things that I'd wanted to share was that we were all born and created for connections. I'm currently 6 months pregnant, coming up to 7 months pregnant, and there's a baby in my womb that I'm connecting with every day. I'm building a relationship with him every day. He may not be able to speak my language, but he knows my voice, he feels my touch, and there is a connection there. God could have easily made it that our baby, really did come on a stalk, or he really was handed to us by someone else. Would have been nice and easy for me, but that's not how God wanted it to be. He's designed us for relationship, for connection, and so we weren't born to be alone. We weren't born to be isolated. We learn and we thrive in community. Um, that being said, community isn't always easy. Um, Past hurts, confidence issues, and trust issues can be barriers for us to have relationships. And I feel like even in this space, for me personally, like God has constantly had to help me to be brave enough to overcome the challenges that I have gone through, to ensure that I can have the blessing of relationship. There are so many beautiful people on this planet, nearly 8 billion of us, if I'm correct, and so many people can, so many blessings come from our connections with each other. So yes, we are talking about community impacts and finding your place in the wall, and how we can overcome those barriers to have impactful relationships. At the conference, Karen shared that we have we'll have walls for one reason or another, and some of those walls will be necessary to protect us and to keep us safe. We can't ignore that. But what about the walls that hinder us from getting to the blessings that God is calling us to? I want you to look at this picture just a little bit closer, and you can see that all the women are bringing bricks, and they're contributing to the wall. They're adding to that wall, and they're building together, making a vision that is bigger and stronger than them. And that's the vision that I've always had for this community, is that we all come with something. It's not like, oh, Sal is the expert, or Sal is the one who's in charge, and da 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 da. Yes, you do have a face of a vision, but I think we all have something to contribute. Every thriving woman can invest and pour into the thrive journey of another person. But yes, so all those bricks that they bring are all different colors, and I love this picture because it just shows that sometimes, um, our what we bring won't look the same, but it's all valuable, and it all makes a difference to the thrive journey of the collective vision and us as individuals. I want to talk a little bit about the walls that we build. um, and like I said, some of the walls are constructive and some are destructive. Some of those walls unite and some of them divide. The walls that divide, like I said, is when we don't work on our pain, when we don't work on our trauma, when we allow rejection, the lies of rejection, even mental health struggles. And, we spoke about spiritual abuse. Those things can cause the walls to build up, and these walls can hinder our relationships. They can hinder community engagement, and it's up to us to really examine and explore what aspects of the wall needs to be taken down, and what aspects do we need to keep there um, to preserve our well-being, our healing, and to enable us to thrive. I had, like I said at the conference, I have a friend called Liz, and she describes the walls as we need the walls because of boundaries. We need to establish boundaries with each other, but they shouldn't be big bordering um, things that we can't climb over. People can't get to us. They should be more like picket fences, she says, and I love that description. And I think it's important for me to drum home that blessings come through relationships. So we have to be intentional about positioning ourselves in spaces like the conference and like women's events, whatever those initiatives are. Um, we have to position ourselves to have relationships with people. Some people obviously we won't connect with, and that's fine. And then there's other people that we will, and I think it's so important to be intentional, to be aware of what works and what doesn't work for us. Sometimes our experiences can teach us that, oh, this type of person isn't for me, um, and this kind of person is, and that's okay. Also, we have limited capacity. I think they say that we can have 7 deep relationships or something like that before it becomes too much. It's okay to just see someone and be polite and say hi, and that friendship not go deeper. And then there's other friendships that may go deeper. I just want to affirm you, if you are really struggling with those walls and those walls are making you lonely, because I have been there and I understand. Um, but there is room for you. There is room for you. There are relationships out there that will really bless your socks off. There are relationships out there that will transform the way you see yourself, the world, your own drives, initiatives, and your own visions. God uses relationships to direct our journey. He uses relationships to bring us um, into greatness. Wherever God is taking you, you're not going to get there alone. You're going to need relationships. So I want you to know there is room for you, and don't give up. If you found it really hard to have relationships and you feel lonely, don't give up. Keep pushing forward. I want to talk a little bit about Nehemiah, and I call it a blueprint for community impact. This comes from my book, The Thriving Woman. And basically, I use Nehemiah as an example to really show how working together and how uniting for community impact is powerful. So, for those who don't know, Nehemiah, he was working for a Babylonian king. He served him, and he was really he had a burden, a real weight on him for his people, for the Israelites, and he wanted to go to Israel and help build Jerusalem's broken walls that had been taken down. Um, and I believe God touched the king's heart and said, you know what, go and build those walls, go and show up for your people in this way. And so what Nehemiah did is he prayed, he sought help, and he mobilized people within his community to ensure that things were in place to build those walls. But it wasn't easy. He was faced with opposition and had to remain steadfast. If you look at Nehemiah 4, verse 17, you'll see that it says they were building with one hand and defending with another. So they had to be really watchful and really aware. And it was a powerful position to be in, but also vulnerable. And sometimes we are both. We are powerful together and we are vulnerable. We have to know when to defend, when to protect, and when to build. I think sometimes it can be quite difficult when you are working with people that aren't always like you. Like Nehemiah, I mean, he had to bring everyone together, and they all had their roles, as I say in my book. They all had their challenges, but coming together, having to deal with people trying to usurp his authority or trying to trick him or trying to take him out. It took a lot of wisdom for him to know how to lead a group of not women, a group of Israelites, to find their places on the wall, to know where to stand, how to defend, what their skill set was. And I think that that's a very powerful part of community, and that is what we're doing here as well within the TWIRL space. I have to emphasize that when you are dealing with community, that it is important for you to know what you are bringing to community. And that all comes down to your identity. So who are you? What is your skill set? How do you contribute? Is it that you're just a person who's a ray of light? You bring joy to a room. It could be just that simple, or it could be even more complicated than that. Maybe you have training in property, or maybe you have training in I don't know, in relationships. Maybe you're a counselor. you know know what you bring to a community and how you can show up. And I always say have wisdom to know when something is depleting you and when it isn't. We have a great initiative that we do, and again, this is in the Thriving Woman book, and it's called the Culture of Exchange. So what I say in the book is that it's important for us to move with intentionality. We can't have a great relationship if we can't exchange, if we don't know what we're exchanging. That's giving and receiving, that's teaching and learning. What are we bringing to the table? Giving is great. Receiving, we don't like to talk about that too much, but how are we receiving? What are we receiving? Are we be selective about what we're receiving, or are we just open to taking in everything? We can't be, because those things, some of those things will confuse or overwhelm us. With social media, you're receiving constant flurries of information, and it can be too much. So it's having wisdom. And so we love that the Bible has many examples about the beauty of the culture of exchange. Acts 2 verse 47, Acts 2 verse 42 to 47 talks about the early church flourishing through unity and generosity. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see a space where the culture of exchange genuinely flourishes. I'll tell you a personal story about myself. Many years I've been brought up and raised in church, and for many years I just felt like I struggled with a sense of belonging, and whether it was in church or even in school, I always felt like the third wheel, um, like I didn't belong, and I think um, that really was not necessarily my environment telling me I didn't belong, but sometimes up here I can say, well, because I'm not connecting with this person or this group of people, that there must be something wrong with me. And sometimes it's just the space you're in. Like I said, there are 8 billion people on the planet. I had to shift my perspective of myself and those feelings of rejection. And I'm not saying that we're not going to feel rejected at any time and that I'm bold and I just go into every environment and, insert myself. But I have to allow the truth to sink in, to push away the lie of rejection. And the truth is this: there is room for me, there is a space for me, there is a place for me, there is a table for me. Sometimes you have to make that table. Sometimes that table isn't necessarily where you are. Maybe you have to go out and build the networking and connections that will give you the relationships that you crave. So for me, I had to be intentional about that. And the lesson for me was that engaging in community really does lead to transformation. And yes, I made a table, but I made a table because I knew that this was what God had called me to. And it's a voice for this time and age and this generation. I love that. June from the Esther Community Enterprise, she has built community through providing food for many, many different people in London. You know, and it seems like a simple thing to put out an act of kindness, but it has built a space of like-minded people for her. And also, what it also has done is um, God, it's shown God's provision. It's shown His hand. Her phrase that I love, she always says, "The provision is in the vision," and I love that because God has used her because she has stepped out and she's taken a risk. All of us will have to take risks at times. There are so many things that we may be lacking in our life that may even have us in survival mode, um, but they can be found in community and in relationship. Sometimes we don't realize it, that the thing that we need to change is just how we approach um, people. Oh, I don't want to go out today. I think COVID has made us very, reluctant to connect with people as well. But I think it's so important that we are intentional. We say, even if I don't feel like it, I'm going to go out and I'm going to build relationships with other people. So at the conference, I would have encouraged you to vote. But wherever you are right now, you could just take a pen and paper, or you could just reflect on this in your own space and just ask yourself these questions like, how are you actively engaging in community? Um, what stage are you at when it comes to connecting with, making meaningful impact within your community? Are you just kind of exploring? So just figuring out how you can contribute to your space. Are you on the outskirts of that community? Are you engaging? Are you actively involved in your community, whether it's your church or your women's group or whatever it is? Or are you empowering your community? Are you consistently making a difference in your community? Or Are you just not sure? It's okay to kind of have an answer that might not be very exciting or positive, as long as you know where you are now, so you know what you need to work on. So yes, um, so what ways do you feel like your contribution can transform your community? So would it be small but significant, active and intentional, or a catalyst for change, or other? Okay, next question. What ways do you feel that your contribution can transform your community? What do you have to give? What are you open to receiving? How can you engage more in your community? Just take a moment and jot down your thoughts, work out where you are. I know it can be quite daunting if you're not sure, if you're thinking, I've never really thought about my community, how I'm showing up in my space, how I'm impacting my space. But if you are not sure, that's okay, that's fine. Just remember that it's more than you, that God calls us to look beyond ourselves. Serving others is not only fulfilling, but it really does transform us. And if you're not sure where to start, all you have to do is start small. Don't do something big. Take your time and start small. And don't undervalue little things, because little things can also make a big difference. I'm going to end with the story I shared at the conference, because this is off the back of highlighting that it is more than us, and that God does call us to look beyond ourselves. I was at my granddad's church years ago, and I was sitting at the back and I was moaning, and it was me, I. And, God said to me, go and pray for this man who was sitting at the back of the church. And when I finished praying for him, he was crying. He's in floods of tears. And he said, I was walking past this church. And when I came in, I said, God, if you're real, get someone to pray for me. And I was just blown away. I was gobsmacked, because for me, I was focused on myself, but God was showing me that I deal with you, but I want to make a difference in the lives of others. It's bigger than you. Our small acts can make a big difference to someone else. So value the small impact that you can make in your community. Is it a cake sale? Is it street cleanups? Is it pamper sessions for someone who's lonely? You can do so many incredible things with small acts. Just write something down now. Write something down now, and put a deadline on it, and make the steps. Make small steps today to make that happen. I want to say thank you for watching today's talk. I hope that it blessed you. And for those who were at the conference, I'm so glad you managed to get to see the end of the talk. But yes, if you have any questions, or you want to talk more further on this topic, you can reach us on contact@the TWIRLhub.com. Okay, be blessed.